I met a powerful coach, Hans Phillips, who I love dearly. And Hans Phillips is a powerful master coach, doing this for like 20 plus years. And working with him changed my entire life. And this was like now, about probably the final year, like the third year into it. We were on television. What used to take 40 hours to do business would take like a few hours, like 8 hours. We had these crazy ass systems and ideas that started attracting and bringing business to us.
Nice.
So we had, I don't know, like it was becoming more and more effortless. And yet I wasn't satisfied. There was something missing.
It's almost like you almost had more time to think. You weren't as busy as before.
It's that space.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't like chasing that business was coming. I was like, in between that, you get a gap. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Journaling, and talking to people, thinking, walking, working out, and everything's starting to come up. And I'm just like, well, I'm in business with my, with my best friend here. His wife worked with us, and my brother worked with us and stuff like that. And there was just a part of me that felt like like this is going to turn into resentment because this was not for me anymore. Everything I felt like I was doing was for somebody else, and I'm just like, I'm young. I'm like, I don't want to feel responsible for other people's financial destiny, and that kind of like made me feel like there's something that doesn't feel good about this whole business, and it didn't feel like it was creative anymore. I wasn't passionate anymore. I wasn't loving it, and I would wake up every single morning just not enthused about doing that work. And because I was working with Hans one-on-one, it was such deep transformational work. And again, there's a cost to the truth. And I kept avoiding it. And I was just like, well, why is this happening to me? And one day, like, I was writing in my journal, and I was just like, I just don't give a shit about this company anymore. And as soon as that moment hit me, I externalized it, put pen to paper, and then I said it out loud. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this part of my purpose. And then within the next week or so, I shut everything down. I had to tell my business partner, told all our clients, embarrassingly saying, we're not operating anymore. Like, we're not we're closing, we're not taking any new applicants. Like, that's it. I need this.
How did your partner react to that?
I think he understood where I was coming from.
Yes.
Obviously, it's devastating for everybody, right? And it affects him, it affects his family, it affects his well-being, his financial well-being. But I didn't want to make that the reason I didn't follow my truth. I didn't want to because then it would still be for somebody else, and it would have made it worse, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, he had to just acknowledge that, without, if I'm not doing it, then he's not going to do it, because I think that he could have, I could have sold my share to him, and he could have continued doing it, and he decided not to as well. But what I didn't account for was the grieving process. This is my child, like every single day because it's more than 3 years. I was thinking about rent to own since I was like still in the factory. Like that idea resonated with me, and I started trying, learning all the ins and outs about that rent to own, even like 3 years before we even did our first deal, 2 or 3 years before we did our first deal. So I was like so self-identified with rent to own and investment property, and I was just that's when I hit rock bottom, and I was like, who the hell am I? What do I want to do with my life? And I was completely lost.
Wow. And were you still working with Hans Philip at that time?
I had to stop working with him a couple of months into it. Yeah, maybe 2 months before I closed the business down, 2 or 3 months.
Any reason why you had to?
Because I knew that I stopped being able to afford it.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
If I was, because the business wasn't performing because I stopped performing. I was the head of sales essentially, and my inability to stay motivated started showing up in how well I performed, like connecting with people, following up with people, and any entrepreneur out there knows that their level of progress and productivity, is in direct relation to how they feel emotionally, mentally, right? And if you don't see that, if you don't see that connection, then you're going to be lost for the rest of your life. And because I was like, I was going like this, emotionally, mentally, physically, not physically, but more spiritually, the business started slowing down.
Wow.
And I'm like, things are going wrong. I'm like, things are really, really going wrong. And I had to hit pause working with him. And because I didn't know what was wrong with me. And then when I didn't know what was wrong with me, that's when I closed the business down.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Nice. That's quite the thing to kind of realize that you and your business were essentially the same. So as soon as one went down,
yeah,
the other went down as well.
It's essentially like if you are, like I just finished the autobiography of Ronda Rousey.
Oh, nice.
She's amazing.
Yeah,
I love her even more. And she worked her entire life in judo, trained since she was like 5 or 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Her entire life was that. And to have your entire life be identified with this one thing, everything in one basket. And then by the time you get to the end of that, like, oh, I got a bronze medal. If you read the book, like I don't want to have any spoilers, but what happens after, she hit a rock bottom.
Wow.
Because, like, imagine you're building everything up to this pinnacle moment, and then once you hit the pinnacle moment, you're like, whoa, what's next?
Yeah, yeah.
There's no, like, what else is next? What am I going to try and get a gold now? Like, everything just crumbles underneath you. And I'm like, if I'm not doing this rent to own, if the Rent Busters, which I've bled and cried and sweat for 3 years, 6 years, really, what the hell, like, what's going, like, who am I? That's when I had no sense of self. I had no identity anymore. And I had to hide it. I didn't want to, talk about it. I didn't want to share anything about it with anybody at that time.
Wow, so
it was embarrassing. It's shameful.
Wow. So you dealt with that whole thing alone then? That must have been hard.
I didn't ask for any help. Like, there was a while where I didn't ask for any help. I didn't want to, and that was the shitty thing, because I've done so much work on myself and I've been intensely coached and done this kind of work. I knew better than to stay in that position. I'm like, well, I should be more grateful. I know enough that I should be taking care of myself. I know that I should be, getting some help, or I know that I should be hanging around people and asking for help, but I wasn't. And a part of me didn't want to be the energy vampire, right?
Oh, interesting.
I hated happy people. I don't want to be around happy people. I fucking hated them. And it pissed me off. Like, oh, you're doing so well, screw you, essentially.
Yeah.
And that was because of what I was going through, right? And I love them. It's not like I wish anything, have ill wishes against them, but I didn't want to infect them with my disease at that time. So I shouldered and carried the burden completely on my own at the beginning.